I'm Kendra Shaw. I currently represent Mayott City Council. I've been doing this is my 4th year. I'm running for re-election, so council members can only do 2 terms, so this would be the next term and then I'd be done. I grew up in Billings, as Jason said, graduated from West. We competed in speech together, not against each other, but in different categories. I did persuasive speaking, Jason did improv duo, yeah. So it's funny, it's nice to see you again. I have to pull out the pictures sometime, I keep saying every time I see you. So I grew up here, left at 18 like many kids do, did not plan to come back to Billings, really couldn't wait to get out of here. Went to the University of Montana, that's where I have my undergrad degree from. My husband and I then traveled abroad. We lived abroad for a number of years, in Japan and Australia. We decided to come back to the States so that I could go to graduate school, and we wanted to start a small business. So we had to run a fair trade importing business for a couple of years. I went to graduate school at the University of Michigan, and while we were there, we had our first daughter, and at that point, Billings started to look pretty good again. We both sets of grandparents were here. We were saying, oh, we have great schools, we have great parks. That was actually a really great place to grow up. It's sometimes a little bit of a difficult place to be a young adult, but it's a really great place to raise a family. And so we packed up the U-Haul, moved back. That was about 10 years ago, almost 11 years ago now. And in that time, being back in Billings, seeing it as an adult, I saw things very differently. And then I unfortunately had the experience of being assaulted at the library in 2014, which put public safety on my radar in a pretty big way. And I started paying attention to local politics, and what I saw was a city council that was just not prioritizing it in the way that I thought it should be prioritized. So I went back and got frustrated, went back, read through several years of city council minutes, and found it wasn't just that issue, it was actually a whole bunch of issues that I didn't like the decisions that were being made. I didn't feel like it represented where I thought the city needed to go, so I decided to run for office. I thought, you know what, if we're gonna stay here, then I wanna make a difference in my community. And so I'm really proud of the work that I've been a part of in the last 4 years. So when I walked onto the city council, we had a budget that was $6 million underwater. We now have a balanced budget, and we've increased public safety funding by $11.1 million a year, and that's going to go on in perpetuity. So I think those are 2 really significant things that I'm pretty proud about. We passed the first new zoning code in 50 years. We're still working through some of the growing pains of that, but it's exciting to see, and I can talk about a few more things, but I'm proud of the work, and I want to keep doing it.
Well, thank you very much, Kendra. So this is how it's going to work today. I've got a series of those questions that Kendra has seen some of those. We're going to give her 2 minutes to answer each question. After the question, we have our timer up front here who will time her, and 30 seconds, she will be notified. 15, we will notify her verbally and aggressively that her time is running out. So we'll try to keep it to 2 minutes so we have time at the end for all of your guys' questions. We're going to go long form first, and then after that, we're going to go to some more quick fire, kind of rapid fire fun questions. But for the first official question, Billings, like many communities in Montana, is seeing rapid growth and a rising cost of living and rental prices. What is the single most impactful policy or action City Council could take to support more affordable rental opportunities, especially for young folks, for seniors, and for the low and middle income people?
So I'm going to kind of cheat because I don't think there's just one thing. It's really, there is no silver bullet that is going to magically make this better. But there is a combination of actions that council can take that we're trying to figure out our way through it. So this last year we requested an inventory of all city-owned property, which hadn't really been done. And so we've been looking at that map. That's why, if you've seen, we put up a couple properties downtown for sale. But we're trying to look at what does the city own around the community and what pieces are not needed, and what could we maybe trade or leverage or do something like that to increase the stock of affordable housing. So we're just in sort of the beginning stages of that, but I think that's an important piece, that the city owns land. And if we can bring down the cost of development by leveraging that somehow, then I think that could be really great. As I mentioned, the zoning code, we're working through now a big process because the state legislature passed a bill that requires us to go through a very comprehensive growth plan in the next 3 years. And so we're looking at how do we make it simpler for people to, build a duplex or add an accessory dwelling unit like a mother-in-law apartment or things like that, because we try and rely on developers, but what I'd really like to see is middle-class people investing in their own property and increasing their property values while also being able to provide housing to somebody in our community that needs it. So I think we haven't quite made that leap in terms of a lot of people doing it, but I'd like to find ways to simplify it. So that it doesn't feel so onerous and complicated. Of like I have to go down to the building department and who do I have to talk to? But make it so it's much more streamlined. So those are kind of some of the things that I'm kicking around that we're talking about on council now. And then obviously like working with the state and seeing, because they have some pots of money for affordable housing, and so however we can make that more accessible here, we're trying to figure out places and ways to do that. So it's a multi-pronged sort of approach. I wish it was a simple answer because it's a really big problem here, but we have to increase the housing stock just across the board. And so figuring out ways to do that, working with all of our partners is important.
Do you support increased funding for community programs and resources that would provide services to our homeless neighbors? If so, what programs would you like to see implemented or funded?
Yeah, we're working through that as well. So Montana Rescue Mission is doing a big expansion right now. We're kind of waiting to see if they really will live up to their promise of being accessible and a low barrier shelter. That's not historically what we've seen in the past, and so that's why the city has stepped in times. Like last year we ran a shelter at First Church downtown. And so we're tentatively crossing our fingers that maybe that will be one of the solutions that we have. But beyond that, I think we have to figure out how to bring more of our partners to the table, because the city doesn't build housing. That's not what we're in the business of doing. But we can be a leader in bringing stakeholders to the table and having those conversations. And I think that, to me, is the city's role, is that we have a lot of different service organizations that do a lot of different things, but sometimes they're just not as coordinated as they could be. And so we've had a Continuum of Care, which is a coalition of kind of a lot of these service organizations that work on housing, that just hasn't really quite risen to the level that we need it to be at. And so we're just having conversations now of, does our local Continuum of Care need to break off from the state, because we're not seeing the allocation of funding that comes through the federal government that should come to Billings. We're seeing a lot of that money go to Western Montana, and we are facing many more issues than a lot of these other communities. And so we've got to figure out how to increase that pipeline so that it's not all just on local people paying for this, because there is some federal funding and stuff, but I think we're trying to figure out how we access it more. And to that point, like the city just hired our first federal lobbyist, because there's a lot of federal money coming down right now. And so they're helping us look for different opportunities to apply for grants and things that just didn't even exist in the past couple of years. So I'm hopeful that they'll be able to help us identify some more opportunities.
You hit on it a little bit earlier. As our city continues to grow, public safety has been a top priority and on the top of mind for many voters out there. What is your vision for public safety in Billings moving forward? What policies or measures would you support to make Billings a safer and better place to live and more economically diverse, or for a more economically diverse population?
So this is kind of shocking, but a significant percentage of our violent crime is related to domestic violence. So about 50% of aggravated assaults, 50-60% of all assaults are partner family member related violence. So when the chief presented that to us recently, and as we and council have been kind of kicking it around, that is a huge amount of our violent crime. You think if that was taken off the table, our numbers would look completely different. So I just sat in a strategic planning session for something called the Family Justice Center that had probably about 60 professionals from around the community, leaders from the hospitals, Riverstone, YWCA, everybody. And we would be the 45th state to have a family justice center. There's not one in Montana yet. And what that looks like is basically bringing like everybody under one roof. So not only the domestic violence investigators and the police that are on the front lines, but all the social services and wraparound care that goes behind the scenes, so that somebody can walk into one place, have one point of entry, and can have these soft handoffs between providers who are already providing a lot of these services. It's just, if you have to drive across town or make an appointment, that's just an additional barrier to people really, accessing the help that they need. So I thought that session was well attended. I think there was a lot of energy in the room. So I felt really excited that I think our community is on board, that we brought in the Family Justice Center Alliance. So the city paid to bring in people who do this for a living to walk us through the process. And they were very positive too. They said, we don't always see this when we go places, or we see sometimes one partner that doesn't want to play ball. And in Billings, that's not what I saw. I saw everybody really kind of coming to the table saying, we have to address this. What's the best way to do it? The city, even we had the conversation of like, what land or buildings do we own that could work for this? Because you really don't necessarily want it in a city hall, because not everybody wants to see police when they walk right in, but some people do. And so you have to kind of like create it so it's a welcoming environment, but you can access everything that you need. So I'm excited about that for the next step in public safety.
I think that's incredible, a great idea. And also, usually I don't like it when we're behind on things, but one benefit, at least we have 45 other examples to look at and go, what did they do right and wrong, so we can learn from them. With the rising cost of housing and the cost of living, many people, especially younger folks, are struggling to see a sustainable economic future for themselves here in the community. What do you think the role of the City Council is to support and retain a talented young workforce here in Billings?
So we have in the city 3 things called TIF districts. It stands for tax increment financing. We have one downtown, we have one on the east side, and we have one on the south side. So the one on the south side is what would pay for about $25 million of the rec center if the parks bond is approved. So that money is already there. It's not new tax money from the rest of the city. Downtown, in the last probably 18 months, council's approved funding for several different projects that will collectively add about 100 housing units downtown. What I would like to see, and there'll be market rate rentals. And right now we're just kind of, any housing is what we need. We just have to increase the stock no matter what, because that's what will eventually bring costs down. But eventually what I would like to see is us move to a policy of TIF funding being leveraged for condo development, because I think that's a really missing piece in the Billings market, is that if the cost of a single family house has risen to the point that 2 teachers can't afford to get into it, we have to come up with a solution, and maybe that solution is they can buy an apartment, and they own that apartment, and then if they build equity and they can move up and then buy their house in a couple years or whatever. So that's what I think the next step is for the city, is to look at how do we leverage that funding to say, yeah, we will help you, we'll put up millions of dollars in the downtown that exists, but we want you to turn around and offer these opportunities back to the community. We're not quite there yet, but that's what I see as the future of the city's playing a role in housing.
We all agree we need more of it. So that's how we do it. Obviously, we can debate. Something that obviously some people here are passionate about today. On the ballot this November is a $143 million parks bond that would build a new recreation center on the south side of Billings, as well as invest in a lot of other parks and trails across the city. Will you vote yes on this bond? Why or why not? Plug your ears, guys.
Yes, absolutely I will. These guys can't advocate for you to vote for it. They can just educate you, but I can advocate and say, I hope that everyone does. This is a comprehensive package that we've worked on for years. I mean, at least, and very aggressively the last 18 months, sitting with partners of the city, these guys at the table, with TrailNet, with the Chamber of Commerce, with Big Sky Economic Development, with the hospitals who are coming to us and saying, we're getting a lot of questions about the trail system from employees that we're trying to recruit. We're getting a lot of questions about, your park infrastructure and what that quality of life looks like. We're ready to jump in and help with, whatever the city needs to do to kind of change it. So the rec center gets a lot of press, and I understand because it's a big part of the package, but the part that I'm most excited about is we're going to build some new community centers citywide. We want to rebuild the Zimmerman Center, which is up here, which I just toured yesterday, and you should watch Victoria Hill's live video of it on Facebook, because it gives you a good sense of what it's like. We're going to rebuild South Pool and put a community center over there. We're going to rebuild the North Park Center. We're going to add new community centers at Castle Rock Park in the Heights and Centennial on the West End. So instead of only right now, all of the city rec programming happens at Zimmerman Center and North Park, which is great if you live in this area. But if you live way up in the Heights or you live way out on the West End, it's quite a trek to get down here. So I really love the idea of being able to expand the recreation opportunities for youth, for seniors, everybody, community-wide, and have these spaces that could also be great for a meeting like this, where you can be out of the elements if needed. So it's a really exciting package. If you haven't, these guys have got, the individual parks and how much money will go for each one. Council passed a 7-page resolution that we call our promise to the community, that these projects cannot steal money from each other. So each one gets a finite amount of money, and they have to do it within that budget, because we just didn't want the situation of the rec center is, comes in at whatever, it's over budget, and it takes money from one of these other projects. We're not going to let that happen, at least not as long as I'm on council.
It's such an exciting idea, and one thing I love about it is just that the Parks Department and the people involved are so ready to answer questions. So I would encourage anybody that wants to know more, whether you're for it, against it, or just curious, engage these guys, ask them questions about what it looks like, what's going to be happening in your neck of the woods there. There's really some exciting and interesting parts to
Let
that.
me introduce them too. You've got here the Director of Parks and Recreation, Mike Pig, and then the Parks Superintendent, Corey Thompson. So you've got the people that are the top of the Parks Department in Billings right here. So please ask them questions.
Each blade of grass cut by hand by these two gentlemen right here in this park. Thank you, guys. Kendra, communities across Montana have felt the impacts of changing climate over the last few summers, from smoky air and high temperatures to devastating floods that all of us experienced. What do you think the role of City Council should be, if any, in combating future climate change?
So somebody just was telling me that a number of cities in Montana have passed kind of a climate resiliency plan, which we haven't really done here formally. What I would tell you is that behind the scenes, your city staff has been quite progressive. I don't mean that politically, but in looking ahead at things. So we're going to get this new water treatment plant on the west end that's going to break ground. You're going to see that in hopefully this fall, and if not, definitely this next summer. That's all about water security for us and the changing river. And twice in the last 2 years, we've had to shut down the water treatment plant because one year it was the flood that ripped through Red Lodge. The next year it was the train. This year it was the train derailment, which they had to shut down, to protect the water. But we only have 8 hours of water when that plant gets shut down. I mean, we do not have a lot of water in Billings, and so this will give us 40 days of water for the whole city, which will, the water security piece I think is really important as we talk about climate changing, all of that. But I also would like to see the city look more comprehensively at like a climate resiliency plan or something like that, whatever it's called, but
One of
across
those
departments.
things. One of those things that they're doing, and those things. I like that. All right, we're going to move on to something a little more light and a little more fun here, Kendra. So you can keep these quick. You can yes or no these. Wait, don't think too hard about these. Favorite restaurant in Billings?
Right now, Spitz.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Those fries. Go-to karaoke song. We need to picture it.
I know. I don't know if I have a go-to karaoke
I don't
song.
either.
Okay. We'll
We'll just say Spice Girls. We both do Spice Girls.
Spice Girls.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's what we would do.
yeah.
Fill in the blank. Taylor Swift is...
Young.
Yes, she is. That is fair. Favorite place to go on a weekend in Billings?
I really like Dover Park. Have you guys been out there? It's really nice. It's way out kind of in the heights, but it's a natural park. It's got a really nice trail, goes down to the river.
Watch out for rattlesnakes.
Yeah, it's beautiful out there though.
Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Oh, the audience is kind of split today. We got a cat in the back there. All right, sorry. One thing you wish you could change about Billings, but it's got to be a one or two word thing, so it's just got to be something easy. What would you change?
Something easy.
Something you could define in just a short little trees.
Trees. I am a tree supporter. Yeah. So, this is not the most important thing, but just as I'm top of the mind as I'm thinking about it, the city just got a $1 million grant for the airport to create a one-stop flight to California somewhere. So this isn't my top priority, but I would love to see more direct flights to and from Billings.
Yes, a lot of people would. I think a lot of people would agree on that. If you could have a celebrity canvas for your campaign, door to door knocking out here, which celebrity would you say, yeah, come on out to Billings and help me out here, and why?
Can I say Obama?
Sure.
Yeah.
Why?
He's charismatic. I feel like he's a personable guy. I feel like he could talk to Billingsites, I think.
Yeah, I think he'd be all right. People would be excited.
Yeah.
Favorite form to eat potatoes in?
Mashed.
Mashed. All right, that's a good choice. Do you believe in ghosts?
I guess maybe a little if I'm questioning this. My grandma used to tell me stories about like seeing things. I've never seen a ghost.
I haven't either.
Yeah.
I want to, though. If anybody knows any, but I would love to meet one. What is the last book that you read?
Let's see. Have you guys read The Power by Naomi Alderman?
I'm going to
feel. Okay.
Yeah, there's a new TV series with it too, but it's about like basically only women get this electrical power and how it like changes the world. It's a good book. It's a good novel.
True story?
True story.
Okay,
Yeah.
All right, sounds exciting. Thank you so much for those thoughtful responses and the quick ones too. I hope you guys learned something. We're going to take a quick little break right now. Let everybody regroup, get your questions ready now.